Once there was a king with 10 sons and 1 daughter. Their mother died when the daughter, Elisa, was born. The children were very happy and good-natured. Then the king fell in love with another woman and married her. He loved his new queen, and in his eyes, she could do no wrong. But the queen was a jealous woman who hated the king's 10 sons and wanted to send them away. Love made the king foolish. It can make everyone foolish. Sadly, the old king said goodbye to his sons. The queen took them outside the city walls, where she said some magic words and changed the 10 boys into 10 white birds. "Fly away to another country," she said. "Make your homes in treetops and find your food on the ground." And so the 10 brothers flew high into the sky, over mountains and rivers. They came to a great sea and made their home in the trees next to it. When Elisa learned about her brothers, she ran away from the king's house. She cried for hours, walking for days, not using her eyes but following the love she had for her brothers. "One day I will find them," she thought, and her love took her near their home by the great sea. That night, Elisa fell asleep under a tree, and all night the fairies watched over her, making sure no dangerous animals came near. The next morning she walked on. She met an old woman. "What are you doing here? Can't a brother or friend help you?" asked the old woman. The woman gave Elisa some food, and Elisa told her the story of her brothers. "I am looking for 10 fine princes on 10 white horses. Do you know of them?" "10 princes," said the woman. "No, but I saw 10 white birds this morning. They had golden feet and jewel eyes. Perhaps they were princes. They were by the river." The old woman took Elisa to the river. Elisa followed it all the way to the great sea, where she saw the 10 fine white birds. Their golden feet and jewel eyes shone in the sun. All around her were pretty flowers and beautiful trees. Elisa built a small house from sticks she found, then decorated the walls with flowers. When she returned, she found bread, eggs, and fish near the door. That night, her brothers came to her. She cried, and they said, "Don't be sad, we'll tell you some stories." Their stories were funny, and after a time, she smiled and laughed. When it was late, the brothers flew up into a tree. "Sleep well, Elisa," they said. "We are watching you." In her sleep, Elisa saw the old woman again. Now she was a beautiful fairy. "Do you want to help your brothers?" the fairy asked. "Yes," cried Elisa, "of course." "Are you strong?" "Yes, I am strong." "Then listen to my words and follow them. There are gold flowers near your little house. Take some home and put them in water from the river. Wash them many times, then make them into coats. 10 coats of gold flowers, 1 for each brother. But remember these things. First, only you can make the coats. Second, you can only speak after you finish them. Don't speak before that, or your brothers will die. Can you do these things?" "Yes," answered Elisa in her sleep. She awoke and looked outside her door, where she saw the gold flowers. She followed the fairy's instructions and worked all day. When the sun went down, her fingers ached, but her brothers came that night. They asked, "Why are you not speaking? Is this the work of a bad fairy?" Elisa showed them her work, making a picture of 10 coats on the ground with her finger. They understood that her work was for them. Elisa continued working for weeks. 6 coats were ready, but one day when she was by the river, a dog suddenly appeared. More dogs followed, making a great noise as they ran around her. A man on a fine white horse appeared with many men behind him. Elisa looked at the man and instantly loved him. "Who are you?" he asked. "Nobody lives here. Where are you from?" Elisa could not answer him. "I am the king of a great country behind those mountains," he told her. "I often come here with my dogs and horses." He came every day speaking to Elisa as they walked by the river. He loved her, and wanted her to be his queen. But why did she not speak? She only spoke to him with her eyes. In the end, he asked, "Will you be my queen?" Poor Elisa started to cry. She ran to the gold flowers. "We will take the gold flowers and your work to my house. You can work there. Will you come?" he asked. She could not say no because she loved him. Elisa and the king took the flowers and the coats, now 8, to his country. Her brothers were sad, but each day they flew high above the king's house. The king had a jealous younger brother who wanted to be king. He wanted the king to die. When the king married, the younger brother was angry. "Now the king will have a son," he thought. "I will never be king." The king did not know about his younger brother's jealousy, for he was good and kind, and everyone else was too. One day, the king had to leave the city for many days to visit an important king in another country. The queen stayed at home to work on her coats. She had 9 coats now, but she was out of flowers. She searched everywhere for the gold flowers and eventually found some in a bad place where the people of the city threw their dead animals. "I cannot go there in daylight," thought the queen. "People will see me and not understand." So she waited for night, then went to get the flowers. The king's younger brother saw her and followed her. He watched her for 5 nights, and then he had a plan. The next night, he called the great men and women of the city to a place outside the city walls. "Why are we meeting in the dark?" they asked. "You will see," he answered. "You will learn something about your queen. Now be quiet and wait." Soon the queen appeared and took the flowers. She started walking home, but the king's brother ran after her and caught her arm. "See," he cried to the people, "she is a bad woman. Only a bad woman looks for flowers in this place at night. She uses them for dark magic. She plans to kill our dear king. Why do you think she never speaks? Because she can only say magic words." The people shouted, "Kill her! Put her on a fire!" The king's brother said, "Let's kill her before the king comes back, or she will kill him." He took the queen back to her room and locked her in. The king and his servants were a day's journey away. That night, they found a place to rest. The king looked up and saw a white bird in the sky. The bird flew down to him, and the king's horse was afraid. The king shouted at the bird, but it didn't leave. The king looked again and saw its golden feet and jewel eyes. "It is one of the fairy birds," he thought. "One of the queen's birds. She can understand them, but I cannot. I think it wants me to go back quickly to the city." The king called his men. "We are not staying here tonight. We are going back to the city. Get ready quickly. I'm leaving now. Follow me." The king and his men followed the white bird all night, the bird calling, "Quickly, quickly." Meanwhile, in the city, Elisa worked all night with her gold flowers. The next morning, the people of the city gathered in the big square in front of the king's house. "What are those white birds up there? Why are they making this noise?" they asked. Men built a large fire, and the birds flew down, circling the men's heads. They took some sticks but couldn't take them all. The king's brother went to the queen's room and brought her outside, carrying the gold coats in her arms. The birds flew with her. At the same time, the king arrived at the opposite end of the square. His white bird flew overhead. "It is the queen!" cried the king. He fought his way through the crowd and into the middle of the square. "A fire!" cried the king. "Why are you building a fire?" He looked at his younger brother and immediately knew the truth. He was furious, and the people were sorry. The younger brother turned to the people and shouted, "Do we want her to die?" The people did not answer yes. They looked at their feet. Then a little boy at the front shouted, "No!" And everyone joined in, shouting, "No!" The queen called to the white birds, "Come here, my brothers." The birds flew down to her feet. She threw her beautiful golden coats over them, and they changed into 10 fine young princes. The princes took the king's brother to the top of the city walls and threw him to the ground. The children threw stones at him, and no one saw him again. The king put his arms around his queen. Speak to me now, my beautiful wife. When you see white birds above you, listen carefully. You will hear them cry, quickly, quickly. Now you understand.